Hey, what's up? I'm back again. Well, back with another video. And I'm hoping that this video, I'm gonna post this video on Halloween. I want to title it Happy Hurl-o-Ween. Okay, I've just always wanted to title a video that. Always. And way back when it was 2013 through 19, it would have rhymed. But I wasn't on YouTube yet, or I wasn't making videos. Okay, well, anyway, it's Halloween. Hopefully by the time this gets posted. And I just wanted to talk about something that has kind of changed. Okay, I should probably be careful what I wish for when I say that I want my voice to be deeper, because for some strange reason, despite me not having any kids or anything like that, I'm just starting to have like a scratchy throat, and I hope I'm not getting sick. I don't know what it is, but around this time of year, I'm most likely to get sick. Sometime around November through December, basically the burr months. For some reason, my very first cold in my life as a non-daycare baby with a stay-at-home mom was around my first Thanksgiving in 1983 when I was 5.5 months old. Okay? And the reason I know that is my mom wrote about it on my baby calendar. So that's how obsessed she was with me, and I'm proud of it. But what I like to talk about in this video, well, the title is Happy Hurl-o-Ween. And I wish I could put like 2019, but unfortunately, that's in the past now. So what I'd like to talk about, and I hope I get to feeling better, because every time I cough, it's like I don't have too many upper respiratory symptoms. I mean, I sneeze all the time. That's just normal. Okay? But every time I cough, I taste like this bloody mucus. And that's like really strange, because 24 hours ago I wasn't. And I hope I don't have some form of COVID or something, some variant. I took my temperature and it was only like 97.2. So, it's really only affecting my voice. And if I didn't feel so bad with it, I'd say that's a good thing. Because that's the one thing I would really like to change about my body, with testosterone. That's the one and only reason I would ever want to get it. I don't like what it would do to my hair, my beautiful lightened hair, but I would love to have a much deeper voice. I just don't want to have to be sick for that to happen. Okay, so what I like to start out by saying is, I don't know why, but like every single time I go through a period of rejoicing about something, such as a cartoon character getting sick, even if it's just the memory of a cartoon from a long time ago. I don't know why, but mysteriously, I just always end up sick not too long after. It's almost like God is trying to spank me or something, telling me to shut up about it or something. I don't know. But, like, when I was so excited about All's Well That Pretends Well, okay, which I've discussed before, and I wanted to jump on a trampoline. Then I had this day where I was able to record it on VHS, which I later transferred to DVD. I went through a period of rejoicing, and the same thing when Angelica threw up, and I saw that episode, around, I want to say it was in 97, and then in 2003, I was finally able to record All the Well That Pretends Well. And so I wanted to rejoice, and I just felt happy. I just felt like a manic state come about me. But then, unfortunately, not long after that, in both cases, I started getting sick, just out of the blue, don't know why it happened. Don't think anyone in my family was sick, because normally it's my little sister that gets me sick. That's why it makes me mad when people stereotype firstborns as the ones that normally give it to younger siblings, but that's only true when they're close in age and they're still babies. You know what I'm saying? That's only true when the firstborn is maybe a 3-year-old and the second child is a baby. Okay, once you get past that, the younger children are just as likely, if not more likely, to give colds to the older siblings. Okay, so not liking this cough, not liking what I feel in my throat, and hopefully it'll pass. But every single time I want to rejoice about something in a cartoon or somebody being sick, for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter who or what it is. But every single time it looks like that, I want to rejoice about that. For some reason, I end up mysteriously getting sick out of the blue, or, something happens with my health to remind me that I'm not this superhero that I want to fantasize about being. Okay. And same thing, like, when I would have this fantasy about wanting to be a boy, I'd go to school and I'd put on a necktie for some presentation we were giving, and I'd feel so good about myself. But then when my period would start, it would be like, Earth to Veronica, you're not a boy. And so, just really makes me mad the way that works out. It's like, I'm just feeling a scratchy throat, and it's like I didn't throw up or anything. But what I want to talk about, since this video is titled Hurl-o-Ween, I want to talk about going 31 months, okay? What used to be my record high was 31 months without vomiting, okay? And vomiting is just as much an obsession with me as colds and poop and all that other stuff, gross stuff in general. I just love it. And because I see it as so freaking validating, when I wanted to have a boy brain, or I wanted to prove that my brain was actually male, I just saw it as such an affirmation that I was really male, or supposed to be male, because I was into gross things. And from the time I was 7 years old, I would talk about, when kids would vomit at school, and I would talk about it at the table, and my mom would have me in tears by telling me not to discuss bodily functions at her table. And, I'd sit down and I'd get out a sheet of paper and write like all the synonyms for puke, barf, hurl, regurgitate, upchuck, blow chunk, spew, etc. And I just felt so proud of myself for knowing so many, and the same thing with poop. And I was just so freaking proud of that, because not only did it excite me and thrill me, it affirmed this false identity of maleness. You know what I'm saying? I'm male because I like gross things. I don't like baseball and football, but I do like gross bodily functions. And what I've come to realize is that the truth is that men, in most cases, are the ones who are afraid of bodily functions. I mean, guess who ends up changing most of the diapers? Here's a clue. It isn't dad. So, I just wanted to talk about that, and how, like, one time I went, I was just so proud of myself. Because, I used to go to school, and, like I say, I had this fantasy about being a superhero that never vomited or got colds or anything. Okay, so I'd go to school and I'd tell people I've never thrown up in my life, or that I never had a cold and stuff like that. But of course it wasn't true. But the thing about vomiting and colds is, unlike a lot of other medical problems, they're more prevalent in the young, okay? Contagious illness is more prevalent in young people because they haven't built an immunity, and because their esophagus is shorter. I'm just so freaking fascinated by the digestive system, or the GI tract. So basically, when you're young, you catch more colds and stomach viruses and things like that. When you're old, you get the chronic illnesses like aches and pains, from arthritis, and, things that are just with you for the rest of your life thereafter. But surprisingly, old people actually get the lowest annual cold rate per year. And that's always fascinated me, how my grandparents, as frail as they were, or my grandmothers, I didn't know my grandfathers, they almost never caught colds, or they would say like they didn't catch colds. And it made me so mad that, someone as young and strong as I thought I was, well, obviously I wasn't that strong, but, my sister and I, we were always getting colds, just like everyone at our school. But young people, as I stated before, they get the most colds, and then you build an immunity and you gradually get less of them, to the point where if you live to be really old and you're relatively healthy, you can easily go years, if not decades, without ever having a cold. So, I would tell these teachers and students that, like I was from another planet, which is ridiculous, that I never vomited, I didn't catch cold and crap like that. But the reality is, thanks to my stay-at-home mom, love you, Mom, hope she never watches this video, I was just able to stay home when I felt like that. I didn't go to school and then throw up in a trash can, and, so that I could have perfect attendance, which I never had, from kindergarten through my senior year. I always missed anywhere from 1 to 20 days of school, with the higher numbers of days being in the lower grades, and one day being like my senior year, because my stay-at-home mom would never send me to school sick, okay? And I'm proud of that. Okay, but the thing about vomiting is when I was like 0 through 14, well, I don't really know for sure about my first 3 years of life other than my mom documenting it in my baby calendar, because my first 2 years of life for sure have been deleted from my memory, and I'm glad. But I'm pretty sure I vomited every single year at least once when I was like 0 through 14. Okay, but miraculously, when I turned 15, I got my braces on, which you probably can't tell because my teeth have kind of shifted. I used to have a perfect smile to whatever extent possible, but I have mandibular prognatism, and what that means is an underbite because my chin was bigger and my mandible is too big for my skull, basically. So they literally wired my mouth shut the summer I turned 17 because they did a jaw surgery wherein they cut a piece of my mandible to shrink my jawline. And I can remember thinking how much I would have so much rather to be having top surgery, aka double mastectomy, than that. Even back then, even when it wasn't, in the news every day. And so because of all that, when I had my braces, I was a lot more mindful than ever before not to vomit, or to not do things that would make me vomit, because I heard these horror stories about it getting stuck in your braces, but of course that's a myth. That's just stupid. Okay, it's not any different. You just brush your teeth and move on. Okay, you rinse your mouth, brush your teeth, and you're fine. It doesn't get stuck in your braces. But I was just more mindful than ever about not vomiting. And so I did everything in my power, even more than ever, not to throw up and not to do things that would make me throw up, because I would be dead right now. Like, I would not be here making this video had I vomited when my mouth was wired shut. Because if I would not have been able to cut, I had wire cutters that I had to keep with me at all times. Thankfully, I never needed them. But I would have had to cut the wires off of my braces in order to throw up. In the summer of 2000, which, like I've stated, that never happened, praise God. I lost weight but never vomited. Okay, so I went 2.5 years without throwing up. From, I want to say, like April 98 until November of 2000 or something like that. Yeah, so from 14 and a half, almost 15, until 17 and a half. Yeah, I never vomited one time. And when I finally did, it was the weirdest thing. I'm gonna feel so freaking embarrassed once this is on the internet, but so like when I was 14, it happened because I got choked. I didn't have an upset stomach or anything. I just got choked on phlegm, and I almost got to the toilet. I was in my house, but some of it did not get in the toilet, and that was so freaking embarrassing when you're almost 15 and you have a 6-year-old younger sibling that has to witness that. It is so freaking embarrassing. It is not like being a 6-year-old with a 15-year-old sibling that watched your mom change your diapers, okay? That is nothing on this, okay? But when I was 17 and a half, I had this strange dream. It's amazing how most of my dreams are forgotten that day, but if I write them down, I can actually remember them for decades to come, maybe the rest of my life. But I do recall this dream that I had when I was 17 and a half that caused me to throw up for the first time in 2.5 years, which I've beaten that record, okay? Thankfully, I think it's been at least 5 years, I've had alcohol, but I've never gotten drunk enough to throw up. But, so when I was like 17 and a half, I had taken this anti-diarrheal medicine because a lot of times I would take it as a preventative measure because the only thing I'm more afraid of is, well, the other end. So, and that's one of the many reasons I would never want to have any kids, because it could involve some vomiting. And worse than that, you could have a number 2 accident. And that is like the freaking worst. There's nothing that could ever make that okay in my mind, okay, as a woman. So, at 17 and a half, I had this dream. I had all this anti-diarrheal medicine in my stomach and probably took too much of it. And what I didn't realize at the time was that headache medicine, along with anti-diarrheal medicine, can interact in a really bad way. So I had this dream. I woke up from this dream. You see, my mom was always threatening me with want to put me in reform school, as she called it, which didn't actually exist. I mean, there were Christian schools, but they were not reform schools. Okay. Taking me out of public school and putting me in reform school, because I wanted to be a boy. I was bullying my little sister, and I was cruel to animals, etc. Okay, typical teenage problems. only maybe not so typical, you know, but she would want to put me in some kind of a school, okay? And in this dream, I dreamed about this Catholic high school. You see, my mom is Catholic, but my dad isn't. I was at this Catholic high school, and it was a clear, beautiful day, like it's so common in November. And it's just clear, cold, and beautiful, not a cloud in the sky. And so I was at this Catholic school, and the worst thing about it was, like, all the boys got to wear black pants, you know, and a shirt with the school logo on it, and a vest or some kind of a sweater. And the girls, while they wore something very similar from the waist up, they wore like a plaited skirt. And I can remember, like, I looked down at my feet and I was wearing my combat boots, you know, not really combat boots, but they look like them. Black boots, so to speak, that I would wear with dress slacks. And, you know, I hadn't shaved my legs recently. I mean, that was something I did to rebel against femininity. I wouldn't shave my legs, especially in the winter, and they get pretty freaking hairy. So I had hairy legs, and I had these combat boots of sorts, and I had this plaid skirt and a school uniform blouse. And so here I was dressed like a girl, and I just felt so freaking awkward. You know, I was made to be with the girls and everything, and it was at this Catholic church, which in real life doesn't actually have a school, but in my dream, it was created. You know, this school was created in my mind with this dream. And so here I was at this little bitty Catholic school. You know, the boys were dressed like boys, the girls were dressed like girls, and obviously I was expected to conform to that. And it just made me so sick. And I can remember, like, I was breaking these branches, you know, from a tree, and I fell. You know, I almost hurt myself, but I woke up before I could hurt myself. And then I realized I just had this really bad stomach ache, and I just, like, sat on the toilet and just, like, threw up in the trash can. Not a whole lot, but just all the anti-diarrheal medicine with some food. And it was just so, like, it didn't gross me out or anything, but I was just so scared. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've got to dispose of this, you know, before my mom gets mad. Because she really did not want us to puke in the trash can, you know. She would prefer the toilet. But, you know, I'm much more afraid of, like, leaning over the toilet fully clothed for a very obvious reason. Because there's something else that often happens simultaneously. Though not always, and it's never happened to me. Praise God. Okay, so I was afraid of something worse happening, you know, had I leaned over the toilet fully clothed. And I couldn't quite lean far enough over to get over the bathtub. Okay, so I just hugged the trash can while sitting on the toilet. I thought to myself, man, 31 months, you know, and that was my record high at the time. And it made me so mad because there was this teacher one time that said his son had never vomited in his life, and he was about my age. And so obviously that didn't sell well with me because I wanted to be the coolest person in the world about being healthy. You know, I had this fantasy about being a superhero, and especially, you know, a boy being healthier than me just really did not sell well with me. Okay, so I would make up stories about having never vomited in my life and never catching colds and being from another planet, you know, because my body temperature was just on average a little bit lower than most. Okay, so after that I felt fine. I went back to bed, you know, just kind of rinsed my mouth, brushed my teeth, and went back to bed. And then I woke up feeling fine. And then I told my mom about it, and she was like, well, that's why you shouldn't take that medicine unless you've been having diarrhea for several days, which I've learned the hard way about that. And I find that cheese is a lot more effective anyway. So, you know, that's just, like I've stated before, you know, I've beat that record. You know, I'm pretty sure in my teens I only vomited when I was like 13, 14, 17, and 19. Those are the ages in my teens when I vomited. And I'm pretty sure when I was 15, 16, and 18, unless I'm forgetting maybe an incident when I was 18, I'm pretty sure there were 3 years in my teens that I didn't vomit and 4 years that I did. Okay, so every other year on average in my teens. So I went from every single year, my first dozen, and then every other year in my teens. Okay, so I see that as kind of, you know, a gradual decrease. And then as I got into my 20s, it was more seldom. And then my 30s, thank God, I've only done it maybe once or twice. So it gets better. The truth is, it really does get better. Okay, so I don't know why I went off on that, and I know it's freaking embarrassing, and I feel pretty vulnerable, but hopefully I'll get to feeling better, and hopefully I will not die by the time this video is posted, and I sure hope that is an exaggeration. So happy Hurl-o-Ween.